Now that we've installed iDcrm onto our iPhone, we see that we have a nice new icon, but it doesn't do anything yet. So we're going to launch it for the first time, and we're going to talk you through the setup of iDcrm. First, you get a nice screen telling you what you need to do, and basically everybody just clicks on next without reading it. But what it actually says is that you should input your credentials, and you've got to know your Microsoft Service address, you've got to have a reliable Wi-Fi connection, and it will take some time. So let's click on next. Now we come to the real login screen. You have to tell us, or tell iDcrm, how you have installed your Microsoft Dynamics CRM environment. Is it an on-premises installation or is it an internet-facing installation? That's the first choice you've got to make. In the example we're going to do, we're doing an internet-facing deployment. First thing you have to fill in is your server name. Now you have to be careful that you type in the full server address. So you've got to do HTTP or HTTPS, fill in the full host name, and if you're using a different port, you have to specify that as well. We're actually not using a different port, but if you would use a different port, you have to do colon and then the port number. If it's an internet facing deployment, you don't have to do the domain name. You can go straight into username, type in your username, type in your password, and click on done. So those are our credentials, and there's actually some more options that you can choose from. So we click on the more options button, and here we have a whole bunch of options that you can set on what do you actually want to have on your iPhone. The first option you got is only my records. That is by default set to no, which basically means you're going to get all the records. But if you only want to have your own data on your iPhone, you can set this option to yes, and you will only have your own records. And that's all the records in every table. You only get the records you own. I'm going to put that back to no for now. Although I've decided that I want to have all the records, which means I'll get all the activities, everybody's activities and everything. I can still say I only want to see my own accounts and my own contacts because I don't want to have too much data on my iPhone. So here I can choose to switch only my accounts and only my contacts to yes. Then we go to the opportunities. Again, because it's just an iPhone and this is the stuff you want to take with you on the road, by default we set it to plus or minus 1 year. You can actually choose to get all the opportunities depending on how long you've been using Microsoft CRM. That could be a lot of data to get onto an iPhone. So by default it's plus or minus 1 year. Activities, depending on the amount of users, the amount of activities you have, you want to narrow down the data. So by default it's plus or minus 3 months. You can switch it to plus or minus 6 months. We have not had the option all here because there are some customers where there's a couple of million activity records and those would just not fit onto an iPhone. So it's either plus or minus 3 or plus or minus 6 months. Then from all the activities that are in the database, you can choose which types you want. And that's just simple yes or no. So it's appointments, emails, phone calls, tasks. By default, the emails are switched off because those contain the most data. And when you're on the road, you want to check your appointments, your tasks, your phone calls. You don't actually want to be sending out large emails to customers. So by default, we switch it off. But if you want, you can switch it on. When you've done all your configuration, you click on OK. You get back to the login screen. You click on Next. And all your credentials are now checked. And it will display to you what organizations you have based on that credentials. Click on Demo 1, which is your organization. And the synchronization will start. During the synchronization, you see all the messages come by. You see that it's picking up all the XML data, it's picking up all the ID data, and after that, it's going to start synchronizing all the data. Now, what iDcrm actually does, it's logging into Microsoft CRM using your credentials. So it's actually picking up all your customizations, all the screens that you have access to, all the field definitions you have access to. It's actually recreating your Microsoft CRM environment onto your iPhone. So it's not taking just standard Microsoft CRM, now it's really taking over all the customizations you have, all the relationships between all the different entities in the database. And depending on the amount of data that you have, this could take anywhere up from like 5 minutes to 2 hours. It's whatever amount of data you want to retrieve. And this is really all you need to do to start using iDcrm.